Hello everyone, we're in Pirkei Avot, third parak, Mishnah 7. There are different versions that seem to break Mishnah 7 up into two different Mishnahs. We're just going to do our regular thing. We'll try to keep it consistent. Mishnah 7 part 1, Mishnah 7 part 2, and that'll be that. Okay, so let's see what this part of the Mishnah says. So here we go. Rabbi Elazar ish Vartota omer. Rabbi Elazar of Vartota said, Ten lo mishelo, shatav shemcha shelo. Give to him, capital H, him, Hashem, give to him of that which is his, for you and that which is yours is his. And thus it says with regards to David, for everything comes from you, and from your own hand have we given you. Okay, so what's the depth of the meaning here? It seems very intuitive. Okay, so like everything is God's, just give it back to him. Okay, sounds nice. We can move along to the next Mishnah. But there's a lot to say here. No surprise, as we've said before, the Chachamim didn't just say these kind of very basic intuitive lessons so we could skip over them. It's important to kind of sink our teeth into it and try to get a sense of what's going on. So the Maharal, we'll start there and then actually move to Rabbeinu Yona. But the Maharal quotes a Gemara in Brachot, the 6th parak, the first daf, it's Lamed Hey Amud Aleph, where it says, Asur le'adam sheheneh min ha'olam hazeh belo bracha. It is usher, it is forbidden for a person to enjoy this world without a bracha. This is generally in the context of trying to figure out from where do we know that we're supposed to say brachas on the food, especially before we eat. So this is a statement there in that context. And then it says, V'kol ha'neheneh me'ha'olam hazeh belo bracha ma'al. And anyone who enjoys from this world without a bracha has committed me'ilah. Me'ilah is the avera, the sin of using a sacred item for non-sacred purposes. That's one. There's another statement in the Gemara, like pretty much right after this, where it says, "Kol hanehene min ha'olam hazeh belo bracha ki'ilu nehene mikodesh shamayim." A person who enjoys from olam hazeh without a bracha, it's as if he's enjoyed from sacred items. So same theme. So the Maharal brings this in the context of what does it mean to be baruch? What is saying a bracha accomplish? How does that help us get out of this situation? So says Maharal, he says what it means to be baruch means that you're being so overflowing with goodness that it kind of spills out of you. You're being mashpia on things outside of yourself. You could just imagine a fairly common image of a person pouring a cup, right? He fills up the cup, and then what happens when the cup gets filled up? It starts to spill over. And if there are other cups around it and beneath it, then that overfull cup will actually start filling up other cups, right? So that's kind of, I think, the theme, the image that we're really going for here. Now, what's interesting about the word bracha, again, is kind of bring it in. I've heard this from Rabbi Jacobs, where bracha, the core is bet, resh, chaf. And what's interesting about that is bet, like all of those are letters of doubling. Bet has the numerical equivalent of 2, resh has the numerical equivalent of 200, and chaf has the numerical equivalent of 20. So you see there's a constant doubling. The whole idea of baruch is to give over, is to replenish, to be over full, to spill over. And moreover, in modern Hebrew, brecha means a pool. I think in kind of more ancient Hebrew, it actually means a spring. It's literally just like a wellspring of water. And so what we accomplish by saying Baruch Atah, when we say a bracha, Baruch Atah is effectively recognizing that Hashem is the source of everything, and then through our recognition of Hashem's Baruch nature, his overflowing nature, at that point, man can then partake of the world. That which is kadosh, that which is sanctified, of sacred, as in all the food that is in the world, that effectively becomes permitted for us to eat because we've recognized God's nature. It is in his nature to be overflown with goodness, and since the nature of being baruch is to effectively give over to other people. Once we recognize God's nature as that, then it then kind of encompasses the food that we're around, and we're allowed to partake of it. That was that. Hopefully I gave that over correctly. That's how I understand the Maharal, and just based on my Rebbeim, this is a fairly common theme. It's a powerful idea, and hopefully we shared it correctly. I also share a diuk that the Maharal gave, where he says, notice that the pasuk said, it says, "Kimimcha hakol umiyadcha natanu lach." From you is everything, and from your hand we gave to you. Maharal is very careful to say that it says, the pasuk does not say umiyadenu natanu lach, hakamach umiyadcha natanu. Because really, if we thought that, like, oh look, if we are giving to Hashem from our own work, then that could lead to potentially incorrect thinking. So rather, no, it's from God's hand. It's God's hand. It's God's wealth. God is the one who gave us the wealth, and we're just effectively giving it back to Him. And on that note, let's actually transition to Rabbeinu Yona, who has a really wonderful idea here, and he says, look, our body and our money is not ours, it's God's. It's really a deposit that He's leaving with us. But we get an advantage that, unlike with a regular deposit, which is in our care, i.e., you can't just take some of the money and kind of skim some milk off the top. Rather, we actually can use this deposit. And he gives a mashal. He says, imagine there is a king. The king has 1,000 Jews, 1,000 coins, whatever. He has 1,000 coins. He gives you 1,000 coins as a deposit. What does he say? He's like, look, this is for 100 of these Jews are for you. And then the rest of the 900 you distribute to 9 people. Sorry, so it's not a deposit. The deposit was how we relate to God giving us our wealth, our material goods. But as an analogy, you have this king who gives one of us 1,000 Jews, and he says, look, 100 is for you. You can keep 100. With the rest of the 900, you distribute to nine people. So what's our reaction there? Simcha, we're overjoyed. We just got 100 Jews for free, for nothing. We don't focus on all the things we didn't get, because something we did get. Now, we're just effectively being used as a shaliach, as an emissary of God, to distribute this wealth to other people. And on this note, Bernstein says something amazing. He says like this: what type of mitzvah is tzedaka? There are 2 types. There is bin adam l'makom, right, between man and God, and between man and his fellow man. Now, normally, if a person were to ask us, hey, can you give me an example of like what kind of mitzvah, like what's a mitzvah of bin adam l'chavero, between man and his fellow man? Our first intuitive response would be tzedaka. It's giving charity, giving other people our hard-earned money to make their lives just a little bit better or a little bit easier. Says Bernstein, that's not so simple. That's what tzedaka is. That it actually is a bin adam l'chavero. And he quotes a Maaseh with Rabbi Kiva and Tornus Rufus. I don't exactly remember how to give this over, so I'm afraid of misquoting or just explaining it incorrectly. So instead, I'll introduce one of his sources of evidence for this idea. He says, fairly well-known statement, we say this every day before davening, right after we say the Birkei Torah. So it says, Elu dvarim she'adam oseh otam ochel mipirotem ba'olam hazeh ve'keren kayemet lo la'olam haba. Which is, these are the precepts that a person does whose fruits he enjoys in this world, but whose principle remains intact for him in the world to come. Ve'eluhem, they are kibud av va'em, the honor due to father and mother, gmilut chasadim, acts of kindness, uvikur cholim, visiting the sick, v'achnasat orchim, right, hospitality to guests, v'ashkamat beit hakneset, early attendance at the house of study or at the house of prayer, v'hava'at shalom ben adam l'chavero, u'ben ish le'ishto, v'talmud Torah keneged kulam, bringing peace between man and his fellow, and between a man and his wife, and the study of the Torah is equivalent to them all. Now, if we're to look at this, if we're paying attention to this list, okay, honor due to father and mother, sounds bin adam l'chavero, acts of kindness, definitely bin adam l'chavero, visiting the sick, bin adam l'chavero, hospitality to guests, bin adam l'chavero, bringing peace between man and his fellow, bin adam l'chavero, between a man and his wife, bin adam l'chavero. This is a overwhelmingly bin adam l'chavero list, and yet tzedaka is very conspicuously absent from this list. Why? Says Bernstein, the idea we just articulated. When God gives us wealth, when God gives us money, what He's doing is He's giving us money, and then we're effectively using that extra, the 10% that we're supposed to give as tzedakah, and that's just like a bonus that God is giving us as a shaliach. We are an emissary. He's made a deposit, and he's effectively saying, Ophir, this money, this extra money is being given to you, so that you can redistribute it to my poor. Because God can take care of His poor. He doesn't need us to act as an emissary, so what's the point of it? So says Rav Bernstein, the point is so that we actually build a relationship with God through giving the money. As an example, let's say you want to give tzedakah to somebody, right? And there's a poor person and he's the other side of the road, and for whatever reason you can't make it over. So you find a person you trust, and you're like, you know what? Here's $10. Can you please go give this poor person the $10, right? So this person, this shaliach, your emissary, is giving tzedakah. No, he's not giving tzedakah. He's giving your tzedakah. What he is doing is acting as a faithful emissary. He's effectively taking your money and passing it along. So too, that's actually our role when it comes to Hashem. Hashem is giving us extra wealth, and that wealth is something that we're supposed to then do as an emissary, as a shliach, and give it to the poor people. It's not our money. It has nothing to do with us. This money is not ours. It does not belong to us. It's just Hashem's deposit, and in that way, we should hopefully be transformed into seeing what the mitzvah tzedakah is, a different angle on it for sure, especially with Purim coming up, and we'll leave it over there.